My life is complete. I've seen a monkey riding a dog. He was loving it.
He's like, who let the dogs out?
Who rode who?
Miyagi. Miyagi. Dex Conway. Yeah. Miyagi.
It's like, why? Like, that's not over the top war cartoon.
He's like, the land, go, 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 go. What the fuck is wrong with you? You smell of coward.
It's like, why? Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. My glasses are like all freaked up right now.
Off to a bad start?
I know. Cut. This is, I think this is the 87th thing. The other day I looked and I think I messed up the order, but whatever. Or did I? I'm never wrong. Buddy Shotz podcast number 87. This is a buddy boy pick by our friend Galathrax, Ryan. But you picked the weird watches for this week.
Yeah.
Which is
The Norm Show?
yes, or later as it was termed, just Norm. Which is
They changed it?
Yeah. It's like, okay. But the feature presentation is Robot Jocks, or in some things I saw Robo Jocks, and I was like, okay.
The title's Robot Jocks, but they're called Robo Jocks.
Right. It's like, why didn't they just take the T off? So, do you have anything like newsworthy, tale-worthy, or recommendation-worthy?
Not this week.
Yeah.
Do you?
No, I didn't really have anything to... I mean, I guess the only thing I could recommend is, once again, I just finished the whole thing of the Orville, like, yesterday. And
Cool.
It's
Still good?
probably the best science fiction show ever made. High praise. But it's really good.
That's high praise.
Yeah. It's up there with Deep Space Nine. So far. So, we'll see. If they make more seasons, maybe it'll take
Better than
side.
Arc 2?
2. What was... Which one's the one... Was that the one where, like, at the beginning they had that huge explanation? Or was that...
This one where they drove around in the RV with
Oh,
the monkey.
no. Yeah, I was thinking about the one where it's like, David so-and-so's life has been turned upside down by a blast or whatever, and it's like... This sucks. But what, in my opinion, doesn't suck is our weird watch. So
We may have slightly different opinions on this one.
well, this was your pick, so why
Yeah.
don't you talk about it first?
Well, I mean, I knew when it came out, I think, I know I was a Norm fan back then, but I think I maybe...
But I'm not anymore.
I maybe watched one episode, but I certainly don't remember it being on for 3 seasons, so...
Yeah, I didn't hear about this when it came on at all, and like, the only way I found out was 3 seasons was when I was doing research for this,
Yeah.
and it was like, what? Because it was like, if you took the Drew Carey show and it was like, it went under the radar, because at least the Drew Carey show was like popular at one point, and went on for a long time. This went on for longer than I thought it would. But yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, anything Norm does is gold, so
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to check it out.
Check it out, yeah. So, yeah, this ran from 99 to 2001, which I was blown away about. In 99, September, it was shortened to Norm. The series starred Norm Macdonald, of course, who created the series with Bruce Helford, starring Norm Macdonald, Laurie Metcalf, which she's probably best known as like Aunt Jackie from Roseanne, and a bunch of other stuff. And later seasons, Artie Lang joined the cast, which I kind of, when I looked on IMDb, I was kind of shocked because it was like every character's first name was their first name in real life. They just had like a different last name. I almost think that was done as a joke, like on purpose, because like for like Home Improvement, they had like Tim Allen, and like in the show his name was Tim too. So
Yeah,
it was
and
kind of
Seinfeld.
like, yeah, it was like almost kind of like
That thing at the time.
right. I thought the stuff that, like, Norm did, like, it was essentially just Norm being himself.
Yeah. It's definitely, like, the dialogue and the jokes are very much his style, which is great.
Yeah.
Or
like,
very funny.
Right.
But I thought the rest of it, like, it's the sitcomiest sitcom ever. Like, it follows the same rhythms that, like, it was just so derivative. I was like, did an AI, like, create this?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought it was funny, but only because the stuff that Norm Macdonald
he's funny in it,
was good.
Yeah.
But, like, other than that, I wasn't like, you have to watch this show because I'm not going to watch any more of it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, if you find, like, a clip online of, like, the best of the Norm show of just Norm, it's literally just, like, different... It's stuff that he might or might not have ever used in stand-up, so it's just funny, him being himself and reacting in ways, like, I don't know, he's not a character in this, he's just himself, which is the best thing.
Just like in Dirty Work.
Right. He's essentially just himself, which for some people would be, like, horrible, because it's like, dude, you're not even trying, but in this, it's like, that's what you want.
Yeah.
And his stuff was good, and essentially, like Laurie Metcalf just played essentially, like, the same kind of character she always plays, like the Aunt Jackie, like, you know, I can't believe you did that, you should be standing up for what's right, you know, that kind of thing. And
yeah.
They, of course, had, like, the overbearing boss, like, it was essentially, like, what's his face from Drew Carey, Craig Ferguson or whatever, except for not as good, because Craig Ferguson's actually, like, funny. This guy was just kind of an asshole, and it was like, okay, this is, like you said, it was like an AI wrote this, and it was kind of just bare bones.
Mm-hmm. I thought the other characters were pretty weak.
They were just,
Jackie, unfortunately. I
felt
she
bad
just
for
played
her. herself, like, it wasn't like, or played that character that she always plays. Yeah, I mean, really, it was just, that was the...
But, I mean, there were plenty of jokes that made me laugh out loud.
Right.
That's, you know...
It was all, like, stuff...
Good enough for a passing grade.
Yeah, Norm said...
It understood the assignment.
That's true, it did.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I would probably watch some more episodes, see if it got any better.
Probably get worse when Artie Lang shows up. He's just like, anybody have any cocaine? That's not funny, I guess.
Speaking of Recommendation Nation, I read his autobiography, and yikes,
Norm,
Artie Lang.
Yeah.
Holy shnikes, that was tough stuff.
How the hell
man.
did he write a fucking biography? I'm sure he was a ghostwriter.
Like, I could not believe the stuff that he's been through in his life, and put himself through. I mean, it's not like he's a victim, but holy, if you want to read some dark stuff, yikes, man.
You, like, read this book called Yikes, Man. Not the Artie Lang biography.
I forget what the title was, but it was pretty riveting, but very sad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to downplay and, like, joke about that, because, like, drug addiction isn't a joke.
He's funny on Mad TV and Dirty Work.
But it's like, that's the problem, is to see where his life is pretty much, essentially...
Yeah, I mean, it's
him
amazing
and, like,
he's
I
alive.
think of him, and then I think of, like, Andy Dick. It's like, jeez, dude, like... Both people associated with Norm that, like, did great at one point, and then they kind of, like, took a nosedive in certain parts. But...
Nosedive? Nice.
He's like...
Nice.
But I guess, like, it was weird because, like, the ending of this actually had, like, the Drew Carey thing too, where, like, they have the baby sonogram and it laughs, and it's like, dude, that's the exact same company. It was just like,
I never watched Drew Carey back in the day.
Really? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we watched it, like, not a lot, but enough to know the players and what was going on. The characters were more like, I mean, it was very sitcom-y, but the characters were, like, personality enough for it to be, like, different, whereas this was like, Jesus Christ, like you said, straight up, like, you know, plain vanilla.
Yeah.
They had the guy that was, like, essentially, like, super... He was kind of like the nemesis to Norm, but he still hung out with him, you know? So, like, the Newman of the show. And it's like, okay, dude, but... yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it definitely was entertaining. Glad we watched it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it. But not a Weird Watch Hall of Famer by any means.
It wasn't weird enough to be like, dude, this is ridiculous, but it wasn't like... It's not like the Orville, where it's like I binged the whole fucking series kind of thing.
For All Mankind?
Yes. I will not say anything about that show ever again. Because it's so good.
You're like, what happened in the third season didn't happen in the first season. Therefore, it was bad.
Like, the show is pure shit. I saw one episode, and now it's condemned to hell. How many seasons do they have of that show?
3.
3, okay.
Just finished the 3rd season.
Nice. Well, we've both finished the 3 seasons of our shows.
Yeah, true.
Now we gotta wait for the next season.
Now we battle to the death. Or which one is better.
In a hot dog eating contest. I'm like instantly die. It's like, what? Yeah, I guess that's all I'll say about Norm.
Yeah.
A man that's gone too soon, sadly. Great comedian.
The best.
I'd say fuck watching the Norm show and go out and just watch Norm Macdonald stand up
or appearances on talk shows on YouTube. Anything.
Yeah. It's like if you could, like I said,
Watch Dirty Work, one of the funniest movies ever made.
Yeah, I haven't watched that in a long time.
It's so good.
I remember thinking it wasn't that great, but it was also like
if you like the Norm show, you'll love Dirty Work.
It was super like a movie that like no one even knew about.
No.
It's like another
because movie career started and stopped.
Yeah, it was a straight up freaking crapshoot. But yeah, overall, Norm Macdonald. Do you want to move on to our top 5?
Yes.
Okay. Are you excited?
Yeah. I mean, my number 1 is the obvious choice, but I tried
top
to go...
Top 5 jocks? No.
Oh, nice.
I kind of want to go over this. So me and Matt I was like, what are we going to do for like top 5 this week? And I was like, what about like top 5 robot mechs? And then you were like top 5 jocks, and then we like randomly came up with an actual list, and it was like so stupid, but I thought it was funny. So the lawn jockey that keeps getting knocked over in Home Alone, and you said jockey shorts and radio shock jock, space jockey from Aliens, and then this one, like, I was laughing at this one because I didn't know this was a thing, but it's like you sent me a GIF that I guess this happened. A monkey rode a dog at the Bengals game, and I was like, what? So number
pretty much
one,
the most entertaining thing any humans ever witnessed.
Number 1,
a monkey riding a dog. It was awesome.
That monkey was riding him like dogs.
He had like a little cowboy outfit on. That was great, man.
Which, it's like, how is that a jockey?
My life is complete. I'm seeing a monkey riding a dog. He was loving it.
He's like, who let the dogs out?
Who rode who?
The dog gets on his back and just crushes him because he's like tiny, even though that couldn't be possible. Okay, so let's move on to our real top 5.
Yeah,
robot mechs. These are like I guess it's like like ones that are controlled by people or that are in them. So
cool.
What's your number 5?
Number 5, Mecha Koopa.
Oh, nice.
One of the cooler enemies in the Mario games. I remember the first time I saw that in Super Mario World, I think. I was like, a mechanized Koopa. Yeah. This enemy could never be stopped.
Wait, are you talking about like the clown car he rides, or
no, like the creature, the Mecha Koopa?
Oh, okay.
It's like a Koopa with this like a little robot suit.
I think that's not. I don't think anybody's in that. I think that's just like a fucking wind-up thing. But
there's not a Koopa in it?
No.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like a little. But it doesn't matter.
We need to dig into the science of Mecha Koopa technology. I always thought it was a Koopa who'd been like mechanized, like wearing a mech suit.
No, it's got like a little like wind-up thing on the back. So it's like because you mean the things that he throws out at the end of the game too? Yeah, it's like I don't know if I'm wrong or Matt's right or wait, that's the same thing.
We'll have to capture a Mecha Koopa and dissect it and see what it's made of.
Dissect it. He's like makes no sound. It's like what? Okay. Well, shit. I guess number 5 for me. I felt like this was like a hard list for me because I was just going on the premise of like, which I guess, like I didn't even think about something like that. So it's like, I think I got.
Well, I tried to stick with mechs
here. Right. Yeah. I guess I kind of thought that wasn't a mech, so I think I fucked up already. Robo Jocks, like the actual. I guess that's the only I can think of for 5 because it's like they're only.
Oh, the the robots from Robot Jocks? Yeah, they're cool.
It's like I can't really think of. That's the problem. We'll see. Okay, so yeah, Robo Jocks.
All right.
4.
Good choice. Number 4 for me is Leader 1 from the GoBots.
Never heard of that before. What is that?
They were the knockoff Transformers.
Oh, they were
in
like
the 80s.
people got into them and stuff. Dude, that's legit.
Yeah.
So it's like Transformers, but people got into them?
Yeah.
Dude, that's legit.
Yeah. Were people not in Transformers?
Well, no, they were like sentient life forms.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I was a GoBots kid.
Oh, that's cool.
So
I just remember,
like the cheap knockoffs
from like the movies too. It's like that's their whole story. It's like the Transformers, like they're like from Cybertron or whatever, and they're like essentially like huge datas.
Would the Transformers not count as mechs then? Since they're not piloted by someone else?
Right.
Okay.
But see, this is what sucks about this list. We should have just been like top 5 robots just in general, because I wanted to put fucking Transformers on the list, but then I was like, well, that might not be accepted because fucking
I figured
they're not piloted.
Yeah.
Whatever.
We don't need rules.
Yeah, well, you know what? We make our own rules. Fuck it.
But the GoBots, like, I used to love GoBots when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But they lost me when there was a series of them that were called like Rock Lords or something.
Rock
Lords.
Oh.
And they were robots that transformed into rocks. And I was like,
dude, that's
speaking of failing
hilarious.
the assignment, like Transformers are cool because it's like a robot transforming into
that's
a
like
cool
in the
vehicle.
70s when they were selling people pet rocks.
Yeah,
it's
like
what?
A rock isn't a cool like technology. It's like,
also like what's the
transforms into a fucking rock.
What's the tactical advantage of that?
I don't know. But I was like, I'm out on GoBots.
Like time for me to transform into a rock. I guess it might be a good way to hide,
but Leader 1 I think was their leader, and he was a robot and like an F-15.
Leader 1. Leader
Not generic
1
at all.
Was their second leader.
All right, number
4. Number 4 for me would be the Gundams for the Gundam series. They've been around for like 43 years. I think it's like the longest running mechanized like piloted things ever. So I've never been a huge like watcher of Gundams. I just put them on the list because it's kind of like they're pretty much the go-to as far as like, you know, when you think of that.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, to be honest.
Yeah, there's so many different freaking series. I haven't really watched any of them, but I just know that they're like a big thing. And our friend like Kevin is like huge into them, and he used to collect those models or whatever and put them together.
Yeah,
and I'd
cool.
be like, nice huffing of pain.
Nice choice.
Nice choice. So what's your number 3?
Number 3 for me is the Transformer from Family Guy that transformed and like with people inside of it and a bunch of blood just squirted out.
That was like
such a good joke.
They did something like that in Clerks, a cartoon. Remember that?
Oh, what did they?
Where like people were like in that car and then it transformed or whatever. And it was like...
Maybe I'm thinking of Clerks, not Family. Am I thinking of Clerks?
I don't know. I haven't seen all the Family Guy episodes, so that could
might
have
been
like
Clerks series that I was thinking of.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's like what we would always joke about is like if there was someone actually in a Transformer, they would be munched.
Yeah.
During the transformation.
That's true. Like if they were in, the car, because you can get into like Optimus Prime when he's like part of the when he's like a semi truck. Mm-hmm. I would assume that like that would stay empty, right? Like why would it be empty when he's like a cab, but then it would fill with something that's necessary? I don't know. I'm sure that there's a really nerdy book out there that has like cross diagrams of Transformers that like they've made officially. That's like, this is the anatomy of like a Transformer, since they're living machines. So that's hilarious. My number 3 is like the Jaegers from Pacific Rim, which is essentially like the updated of what this is.
Yeah, the ripped off robot jocks.
They even said that, like, I think Del Toro was talking about that at one point, like, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are awesome, and that first Pacific Rim I really liked a lot.
I never watched the sequel. Movie. I was super excited for the sequel, but
so
like,
bad.
They got like John Boyega, which was like the one thing I was excited about, but I heard so many horrible things about it, and I felt bad for him.
It stunk.
That man's got screwed.
Yeah, I mean, his character in that movie is god awful. Like, well, all the characters are, including his. Don't watch it. Just watch the first one.
All the characters are horrible, including his. But yeah, like, that sucks.
Yeah,
the first one was cool because they had so many cool characters, and like Ron Perlman and all these other characters, and then it was like Del Toro, I don't think, was really even involved with the sequel, other than like, from what I heard, like is like he was probably like, yeah, you can use the ID, like the, name and stuff, but he wasn't as hands on like he was with the first one.
Yeah,
which is not good.
All right.
So my number 2 is the Mega. I have like a split number 2: Megazord from Power Rangers and Voltron from Voltron, which Voltron came first, I'm pretty sure, because Power Rangers is based on like the like another like franchise in Japan or whatever. But like I never watched Voltron. I just had to put Voltron on this list because they're like essentially Power Rangers kind of like came up with that after that. Mm-hmm. You pretty much say, but Power Rangers was way more popular in my opinion, at least over here. I know a couple people that like Voltron, but everybody I knew growing up had heard of Power Rangers. Not everybody had heard of Voltron. But yeah, I don't know. We got the Power Ranger, like the first one, the Generation 1, and then we got like the Green Sword, but I stopped watching after I got like older and stuff, and I haven't watched the show since then. So
wonder if it still holds up.
I don't know. I know that there's a shit ton of episodes. It's like, dude, I think that would be like hell on earth.
Did you see that movie that came out a few years ago?
I didn't see it. I was kind of scared to watch it because, like, to me, like, the best part about, like, the movie, or, like, the show was, like, in the American version, they added in, like, Bulk and Skull, which were, like, the two bullies, but it was, like, they were the comic relief, so they would always, like, bully the Power Rangers, but the Power Rangers were, like, stronger than them, so it was, like, bullies that always sucked.
It's like Bebop and Rocksteady.
Right, so, but it was, like, it added, like, comedic value to a show that was otherwise really serious, so, like, I feel like you have to kind of have that and serious stuff. Well, I think it was serious to the degree of, like, the context, but it wasn't serious at all as far as, like, you know what I mean? It was like a kid's show. But, like, I don't think they had that in, like, the movie, and I was like, I'm out. That, and it just, like, I watched the trailer, and it just looked like a CG fest, and I was like, I don't know about this.
I don't blame you.
But, yeah. Do you have any honorable mentions?
Well, number 2 for me...
Oh, wait, I went for you, sorry.
That's okay. Is the cargo loader that Ripley drives in Aliens.
Nice! Oh, I completely forgot about that.
That's one of the coolest special effects in movie history.
I can't believe I forgot about that. I was racking my brain for, like, ideas, and I completely forgot about it.
Yeah, I mean, you could watch it today and be like, how did they do that? Like, it looks awesome.
Even if you knew. Yeah. Like, the guy that made it was like, how did they do that?
How did I do that?
He forgets every day. Dude, that's legit. Yeah, that's a good one. I completely forgot.
Yep.
But now, you reminded me.
Awesome. This is how you remind me?
This is how...
I don't have any honorable mentions, though.
Of what Ripley really is. My honorable mentions, I wanted to put them on the list just because, like, they weren't piloted things, but I was like, you know what? I don't give a shit. I wanted to put, like, the Iron Giant and Transformers on here, but I think that I know what your number one's going to be. So go ahead.
Well, does this pass the test? Mecha Godzilla?
Oh, that's my number one, too.
Nice.
Yeah. It does, because I was wondering... I looked it up, and originally he was just like a thing that was like not piloted, but then like in '92 when they did like the G-Force era or whatever, there was like a dude that was like a pilot of it, like in the G-Force, like Takia. Yeah, he was the main pilot of Mechagodzilla. So
yeah, I think in the originals they turned a girl into a robot and she could control Mechagodzilla.
And like there have been times when it's essentially like he's a Data. It's essentially like it has a consciousness. But even in like the newest one, like Kong versus Godzilla, like Mechagodzilla isn't being controlled, or he's not. He doesn't have a sentience. He's first being controlled by someone, and then he's being controlled by the consciousness of like King Ghidorah. Yeah. So it's essentially like a monster controlling a monster.
Controlled by the ghost of another monster. Yeah.
An electronic machine is being controlled by the ghost of a dead alien monster.
Because they kept his bones in a lab.
Yeah.
Is that not what you thought my number one was going to be?
No, at first, when you were talking about Transformers, I thought you were going to put, like, Megatron. Or, Megatron. You're like, fuck, good guys, Megatron. I always say Megatron. For some reason, I always, like, Megatron's like the good one, right? And it's like, no, it's Optimus Prime, but I don't know. I was never like I never really watched that back in the day either, like Transformers. So never watched like that or like G.I. Joe or like any of that stuff. So I'm kind of a lame kid. I guess.
Me neither.
Or like
you weren't all about GoBots.
I was about like Ghostbusters and I'm trying to think what else, but yeah, that was pretty good. Turtles. But yeah, Mecha Godzilla. It's a double favorite.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, what's cooler than being ice cold?
I guess I should put an honorable mention for Mecha Kong, because there was a Mecha Kong in one of the old 60s.
That's actually what they based Mecha Godzilla on, was that they did like a Mecha Kong at one point before that, and then they were like, wait a minute, what if we did like a fucking Mecha Godzilla? It's essentially a freaking robot version of Godzilla, which is like, dude, or a mecha version of King Kong. Maybe that's what they'll do for Kong versus Godzilla 2. They'll have to square off against Mecha Godzilla and Mecha Kong and Mecha Ghidorah.
I almost had a heart attack this week, speaking of Godzilla.
What?
Because Toho announced like a new
I thought
Godzilla.
You were serious. I was like, Jesus!
They announced a new Godzilla versus Gigan, and I was like,
what?
Dude! But it's like going to be a CGI short film. So I'm like, no, that's not exciting.
Like the people are CGI, but the monsters are real?
Yeah.
It's like, what? Huh. Yeah, it's like they're doing that Godzilla show with Kurt Russell, right? On Apple TV. And I was like, huh, I wonder what this is going to be about. Kurt Russell's the monster. He's like, where's my fucking radiation?
His mustache gained sentience.
He's like, where's my atomic radiation? There it is. Cool. Well, that's our top 5 for this week.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. We make our own rules.
No rules, just right. When you hear your family.
Yes.
Just list off restaurant catchphrases. Let's get to the main event. I'm loving it.
I wonder if there was any tie-ins for this for any restaurants. Probably.
I doubt it.
Maybe in like another
The movie
country.
barely got released.
Speaking of which, like this movie, I looked online and it's like you can watch this movie on Amazon for a couple more days, and then they're taking it down, on Amazon Prime. And I tried
the wire.
Yeah, I tried to look it up to see how much is this movie to like buy, because I was like, maybe I'll get the Shout Factory release. It's sold out, and on Amazon it's $150.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I was like, So
I think we're going to see more and more movies like that, though. I mean,
Yeah.
As streaming, not everything's on streaming,
Right.
like what people may think. So it's going to be harder and harder to see movies, and these physical releases are going to gain value.
yeah, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad that you have to pay to watch movies.
I know.
I didn't have to pay to watch this, though, thank God. Not thank God. Okay, so Robot Jocks, or Robo Jockeys, is a 1990
Robotic jockeys.
Robotic Jockeys is a 1990 American post-apocalyptic mecha science fiction film directed by Stuart Gordon and starring Gary Graham, Anne-Marie Johnson, and Paul Koslo, co-written by science fiction author Joe Haldeman. The film's plot follows Achilles, one of the robot jocks, who pilot giant machines that fight international battles to settle territorial disputes in a dystopian post-apocalyptic world.
I do think that's such a cool idea, and I wish this happened in the real world.
Yeah,
Like,
that we went through a post-apocalyptic thing.
no, we would use giant robot fights to settle wars.
I was thinking that, like while this was going on, I was like, man, how much better would it be if there were wars, there would be no actual fighting. It would just be like each side would pick like a combatant, essentially like in Rocky, where like they would pick like a dude and then they would just fight it out in the ring, and the person that won that side won the dispute. Because it's like, then you wouldn't send like 1 billion innocent people to their fucking deaths.
Yep.
Over something they didn't even want to fight for. But all political commentary aside.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Rocky, but this is pretty much like the Rocky IV of robot
Yeah.
movies, where basically they end the Cold War through a battle.
Yeah, so they have like
Both sides
Russian guy. They have like, I forget what the sides are. They're like the Confederacy and like the whatever it's called. But essentially, it's like it's like the United States side of the world and like the Russian side of the world are like two different.
So had you never heard of this movie before we did it?
You know, honestly, I might have heard it offhand from like Ryan at one point, but never more than just the mention of it. But like, I knew very little of it.
Yeah, I'd known about this movie my whole life because Ryan had seen it when we were little kids and would talk about it, and like, you know, when he described the plot, it sounded like the greatest movie I've ever seen. So I always wanted to see it, and finally, when that Blu-ray got released, I checked it out.
Yeah, it's funny because like I brought this up. Nate was asking like, "Hey, like, what movie are you guys doing?" And I was like, "Oh, we're doing Robot Jocks," and he was like, "Oh, I'd never heard of that," and I was like, pretty sure Ryan would have brought it up to him multiple times, so it's kind of shocked maybe he didn't. I don't know. But maybe he just liked to talk to you about the Robot Jocks. I thought the opening music was really good in this.
Yeah, it's got a cool score.
Yeah.
Kind of like a jaunty, adventurous theme.
Yeah. So we essentially went through the, like, how, like, how they, like, settle their disputes and stuff like that. And when they're panning at the beginning of this film, it's like your first look of a miniature set, which was good to see. It was cool, I thought.
Yeah, that's pretty much the best part of this movie, in my opinion, are the miniatures and the special effects. Yeah, some of which are better than others. But.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that the special effects obviously would stand up to, like, you know, anything that's in, like, some of the Star Wars films or, like, you know, the Orville or, like, that For All Mankind show. Mm-hmm. But, like, I'm sure they had way less of a budget, and, like, what they did with what they had is pretty impressive, honestly.
Yeah, the budget was $6 million, and, I mean, that's not a lot for a movie like this.
Especially for, they were doing a big science fiction.
But at the same time, this movie still looks very cheap, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can totally tell there's no budget to this thing. Yeah. I actually would have guessed the budget would have been less.
I thought it would too.
But
maybe all the money went to, like, some of the actors.
Sato?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. From Karate Kid 2.
Yeah, I totally forgot that dude was in this movie. I don't think I've ever seen him in anything else, but he popped up and I was like, Yogi!
Yeah. Yeah, he was in the other one called, like, Robot something. That's, like, essentially not a true sequel, but it's like kind of a spiritual successor, and I can't remember what it's called, but when you look up Robo Jocks, you'll see it. So
did not know that. I guess if it's not the sequel,
it's not the same. Yeah,
I was like, wait, how?
Yeah, he plays obviously a different character, but it's not even the same like thing. It's like called something completely different.
Okay. So what were your general thoughts on Robot Jocks?
I don't know. I mean, I thought it was pretty entertaining for the most part. Some of the stuff was kind of like, I don't know, like, I liked the music, the effects were good, like, obviously, like, all the acting was, like, straight up like any other action film I've ever seen. It's all pretty bad. Like, hammy and stuff like that.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of, like, almost community theater acting, but not to say that as a super criticism, like, they're giving it their all.
Well, I didn't, like, know anybody in this film except for, like, the guy that played Sato.
Yeah, me neither.
Which isn't a bad thing. It was just kind of like, I looked up some of the other people, and the main guy, it seemed like he did, like, his profile picture was him with, like, a katana. So I'm assuming he thinks he's, like, some big martial arts star.
I was distracted by him because he looks so much like that actor.
Bob Thornton, I thought.
Oh, I thought Scott Glenn.
I don't know who that is.
He's a guy that looks exactly like this guy. Billy Bob Thornton? Really?
Yeah.
I could see that, maybe. But, I mean, they're all
like, Scott Norton, that guy doesn't even exist. I'm like, I've never seen him, so he doesn't exist. Yeah, what was he in?
He's been in a bunch of stuff. I think I know him best from Urban Cowboy. Have you ever seen that with John Travolta?
Oh, man, it's been so long.
He plays like the nemesis in that movie.
Okay.
It's pretty amazing.
But,
the movie about competitive mechanized bull riding.
Another competitive film.
And he was in The Right Stuff.
Oh, okay.
He's one of the main guys in that too.
There's some ADR in this film.
Oh yeah, there's.
Which almost at first I thought that this was like filmed somewhere else and it was like a dub, but not everybody's dubbed. Like the one lady is like never dubbed.
Yeah.
But like the cowboy guy sometimes is dubbed, and like the main guy is sometimes dubbed. And there's also like some off-screen stuff, like they're having a training scene, and like some guy goes, "Get him, Sargon," and it's like so scary.
I know one of your favorite actors, Jeffrey Combs, is in this. What do you think of his amazing character?
I wish I would have never seen IMDb.
I know,
because it was literally
you may have even missed.
He's listed as like the 6th thing on here.
Really?
Yes,
Dude, that's
on
ridiculous.
IMDb, and it's like he's in one scene where he's like him and his friend are going to like bet on the outcome of the fight, and like he's like has his mask off and he's like just yells and stuff, and that's it. You never see him again.
There had to have been more deleted scenes with him because like he's in almost every of Stuart Gordon's movies.
Right. Yeah.
So
it was just kind of like
what? Yeah. But this movie was very short, which I think was to its benefit.
Soil is just dirt. All the rest of the team is dead. I was like, yeah. Also, like I was kind of with the cowboy guy. I didn't understand the reasoning besides like, if this guy's supposed to be the best, why save him for like the last when you could just stop?
Yeah,
I didn't.
There's a lot of things
that.
I didn't understand in this movie.
He's like, yo, that's why we're saving him for Alaska. It's super important. And the guy was like, well, if you'd sent him out first, these other guys wouldn't have been killed, and we would have stopped him there instead of they've already won all these other things. So it's like, yeah. I don't get it. You could have had all of them, not just Alaska, you dumbass. And we've got the plot idea of like in this universe, they're starting to create these artificial humans. Not artificial. I mean, they're real people, but they're like
tubies.
They don't have like actual like
test tube babies.
Right. Is that what they call them these days?
That's what they call them in the movie.
They call them gen jocks.
I thought they called them tubies.
It depends. Tubies is like a racist term for them in the movie. Not obviously not like that's racist, but you know what I mean. Like I'm like you just like
a discriminatory.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not, I guess it's not racist because they're not a different race, but they're all part of the human race.
Welcome to the human race.
And then we've got a scene in the running for the most sexist scenes in cinema history. Top 5 sexist. Scientists asking for genetic material to make a higher class of gen jocks from both the main actor and the cowboy guy. And he goes, "Can we just skip the middleman and make a direct deposit?" And the one guy was like, I was like, hey.
That's just great writing.
Yeah. But weird ADR, like I said before, especially when Tex Conway, it's like a fusion of Tex Hooper and Conway Twitty.
It could be.
It was cool because they had like a promo before fights in this. It was just like the one Russian guy was just like, "I've already killed you up here in your mind." And I was just like, it was just interesting. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." It kind of sets up the world of like, essentially everything is on these fights and stuff, and it's just like there's no actual fighting. People aren't like, actually out there like trying to kill, for stuff. It's like just these two people, and it's like whatever happens, it's like, okay, well, that's it. Like,
to that point, like, I think there's more to this movie than just being like a cool robot movie. Like, there are some decent ideas in it.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't tell because at one point the main character Achilles, he said he's illiterate.
Yeah.
And so, like, in this society, like, are the civilians not educated so that the government can control them? Is that kind of what was happening. I couldn't exactly tell.
Yeah, it kind of seems like even if that's not the case, they're pretty much controlled anyway, because people are out there, like, it's like everybody's wearing masks, which to me makes me think that even though they don't really talk about it, there's some sort of, like, sickness or something.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it's also, like, people will gather to vote on who wins so that they can maybe get a payout of money or something, so there's still, like, some sort of, you know, money and stuff like that. There's also a part where, like, when he goes to see his brother later in the movie, and, like, his wife's pregnant, and they're like, oh, if we get 6 kids, we get a 3rd, like, bedroom. It seems like the living situation is dictated by how many kids you have, because they're trying to repopulate the earth. Because you never
like
see,
a breeder.
Yeah, you never see a ton of, like, people in one place. So it's like, yeah, it's one of those deals where, like,
that was cool.
They're slowly making the climb back from, like, total decimation.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this more than just, you know, your typical directed-video sci-fi movie.
They definitely have some good ideas in it, which I thought was cool. Like,
yeah, me too.
And it's one of those things where, like, it's like they're almost on the cusp of, like, being admitted possibly into, like, this, like, a federation or something in space if they had space travel, because they've gotten past the point where, like, they'll fight, like, physically over stuff, other than they have, like, the barbaric fighting of, like, a gladiatorial thing. But it's like, that's how they settle their disputes. So it's like they're almost there. So it's kind of like, it's interesting. It's kind of sad that there really was never, like, a follow-up on this at all. I know that, like, I read online that, like, the guy that, like, did this or whatever was saying that, like, when they did, Pacific Rim, he was like, oh, that's so cool, because, like, honestly, if I was going to do a sequel, I would have done, like, that, where, like, humanity comes together to fight, like, aliens. Like, in the Jotz or whatever, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. Well, I thought that there was more, but I guess not.
At least this movie walked, so Pacific Rim could run.
Ah, true.
There was only one set of footprints for Pacific Rim. There's robot Jotz carrying it. Or wait, never mind.
Yeah,
I think I got that backwards.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I'm surprised it took them this long to realize that having civilians, like, standing right next to the robot fight may not be the best idea. That's the funniest, like, greatest part of this movie.
Yeah, that was horrifying. It was just like,
oh!
Also, like, okay, so, like, this scene where, like,
it basically sets up the whole movie.
Yeah, they're, the bad guy, the Russian, the Ivan Drago of the film.
Alexander?
Yeah. Is fighting, Achilles, our hero, and, you know, he's down. Both of them are down, but he's gonna do, like, a cheap shot to, like, fire at the crowd. And he gets up and blocks it, but he just ends up falling on the crowd and crushing and killing, like, a ton of people. Which is more damage than if he would have just let the fist hit the crowd, because his mech is way bigger than the fist. And I'm like, he's like, looks down and people are, like, mutilated, and, like, one dude, like, had turned into, like, the dude from RoboCop that, like, gets, like, nuclear waves on him, like, somehow. And then, like, people are crying, and he sees, like, a teddy bear, and he's, like, traumatized. He has, like, PTSD. And I was just thinking, like, what did he think was going to happen? Like, I guess he was thinking he could block it, but he took it, like, right to the robot's spine. Like, he didn't try to, like, block it with his hand. He was just like, come in! And then he, like, fell on him, and then the next scene is just right away, total dead, over 300, worst disaster in the history of the game. So I'm like, so were there 300 people in that small part of the stand? Good lord. They, like, packed it.
They were packed in like sardines?
Yeah, they were all like,
which it might be worth it to witness a giant robot fight.
I mean, it doesn't seem smart if everybody's supposed to be wearing masks. If there's, like, essentially, like, a virus and stuff like that out there, why is everybody packed into this fucking... And it's funny, after this happens, like, and he, you know, he's like, we were thinking about getting rid of the spectators anyway. I'm like, why the fuck would you have them there in the first place? Like, they're firing machine guns and missiles and all kinds of shit. Seems so stupid. But like you said, it's like one of the funniest things. It's like,
so
what were they thinking?
That's basically like the thing I remember most about.
Oh yeah, because it also comes up later when he's trying to sleep and he has like a, like a nightmare about it and stuff. The referees that like wear the striped attire and everything, they're flying around in their little hover planes. I thought that was pretty funny because it's like, I give them props for like doing that, like effects wise, but it makes like zero sense when they could just have like flying cameras because everybody can see it anyway. So it's like, what are you gonna miss?
And they have no power to like stop.
Yeah.
To enforce their.
Because at the very end, he's like,
he murdered.
Stop this! You're done, Alexander. If you defy us, you lose. And he like crushes the thing they're on. And it's like he just ignores them. And it's like, you'd think there would be like some sort of safety put in all the mechs just in case somebody goes rogue. You don't want like
stop.
Yeah, you don't want like somebody like Alexander that like is a psychopath that can just do whatever the hell he wants.
But we find out he has a heart of gold.
I know, right? That was like the killer levels of face turn for no reason. We've got a classic ass slapping when the dude like boards. He's like, "Good luck," and I was like, "Well, there you have it." I thought it was
that actually becomes a plot point.
That's true. Ass slapping for life. His brother calls early in the film. And like you see, he's got like 50 kids. I was like, good lord. And they're like, good luck. And he's like, and I was like, what? Oh man. And then the guy's just like, this is when he essentially is like, dude, I'm done. Which I thought it was kind of interesting to see like a hero like be like, okay, dude, like I've seen enough, like I've done enough, and I'm done. And they kind of like undo.
Well, yeah, and that's the biggest thing I don't understand about this movie is the woman, what's her name? Athena?
Yeah, Athena.
I didn't understand. I guess her motivation was she just wanted to be a jock.
Right, yeah, because
she was going to push everyone else out of the way.
Yeah. Which, like, I understand, like, where she's coming from, because even earlier in the film, like, she seems like she's super capable, but, like, what's his face, like, the trainer guy is like, yeah, they sent him to me, but, like, she'll never be a jock, she's a woman, and it's like, for as advanced as they are, like, they're still like, oh, women can't be jocks, and it's like, what? That makes zero sense.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah. I don't know. I thought it was kind of weird that, like, because they kind of had, like, a cool thing going where they, like, had him retire because he was like, dude, I can't believe, this is horrible. I can't keep doing this because it's like he had PTSD and all the stuff he's done and witnessed and he's gone through as a hero. He was like scarred on his face and stuff, and it's like, okay, this is kind of cool, he's gonna quit and like he's just gonna be a civilian now, and like, then he's getting harassed like, you're a coward and stuff, but it's like, that would have been an interesting thing to see him, maybe even if he comes back to be like a coach to like her,
right?
Which he kind of does, but then they like do a thing where like,
but then she betrays him basically.
Well, she can't like handle it.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I don't know, it's whatever, but it was just kind of like she couldn't handle it, and then he ended up coming out and losing anyway. So it was like, what?
Yeah, it's just
there was like weird 5 endings to this movie.
Yeah. By the end, you're like, all right.
Well, it was more so like, why didn't they just go with the original ending of like her beating him and proving that like gen jocks, like tubies and women are just as good? Because like earlier in the film, like he didn't want, like the Russian dude didn't even want to touch like her brother or whatever, like the one guy. He's like, I don't want you to touch me. You're not a real person, essentially, and stuff. And it was like, how cool would that have been for her to just come back and, prove him wrong, and then at the end been like, I was wrong, that kind of crap. And instead they were like, not only was he right, he also beat the main character, and then had like a random 180 face turn. The only reason is mainly because he was like burned and like crippled. It's like, man.
What'd you think of the training scene where they have to like climb to the top of a giant jungle gym?
That reminded me of like the Danger Room from X-Men, where they have like a white air, like just a completely blank thing, and then they bring in like something like that, and people were like, you know. So it was weird because there was a part where like somebody falls off of it, but you see like a mat where he's gonna fall, but when they cut to her face, it looks like she like looks away like he died. So I was like, okay, I think that was a fuck up.
It must have been. I didn't catch that actually.
Because he was
he like basically falls to his death.
Yeah, but he's like falling on like a crash pad essentially.
Speaking of mistakes, during the fight scene where like Athena fights Achilles, did you notice the stunt doubling? Because like I usually notice this stuff, but it's usually not so egregious. But like, look at this! I had to take a screen cap of it because she turns into a giant dude. I'm like, they didn't even try.
It's like that scene in Jurassic Park. I think two. I think it's 2 where like Jeff Goldblum's like daughter like is doing all those gymnastic stuffs, and when she lands, it's like a black dude with a wig on. It's like,
hilarious.
I thought it was like it kind of went to show like how robotic these characters are, because like they ask like, why'd you try to save those people, not like, you know, anything else. And they were like, he's like, what? Like they're just like, yeah, like you would have won if you wouldn't have tried to save those people. And it just kind of goes to show that they're trained like for like not to fear, not to do, you know, just to straight up get the objective done. And it's like, good lord, like, also, I thought it was weird when he's like, I don't fight tubies, and he actually goes to fight him, but like, it instantly shows that these things suck, because like, he fights them, and he doesn't even fight him, he just grabs his hand, and the guy's like, ah! And I'm like, so these tubies guys, these gen jocks are like weak. So it's like, the rest of the movie's done.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff like that. Like, also, I didn't really care about the whole like spy situation. Like, there's a mole or a spy in our midst who could.
I mean, I thought that it was. I thought it was gonna be something they were gonna address eventually, and they do. But it was pretty obvious who it was. I thought.
Yeah.
Because they try to do like a red herring at one point, and you're like, dude, we know who it is.
Can we get to more robots fighting, please?
Having a nightmare about the tragedy and wakes up. Someone is watching him. Athena took him home and studied his body.
That did happen.
I was like, what?
Kind of a weird scene.
Yeah. Well, it was just kind of like... the only thing I could think of was just like... These characters are just straight up robots. Like, they're not... And that's what they're, I guess, bred for, but it was just kind of weird. Like, okay.
But that was after the cool, he's like basically getting drunk at the space bar.
Right.
I always like that in movies, like a futuristic bar.
Yeah.
Even though it's pretty cheap looking.
Also, there was like a weird, I think they tried to make this a thing that made sense, but it didn't make any sense. He's like, you're curdling my beer. And he's like, he says, you're making my beer curdle. Which, can that even happen?
I don't know.
And then Alexander turns into Bela Lugosi, and he's like, and you make my drink taste like blood. And I was like, what? What does that even mean?
I did think it was a nice touch. He was trying to drink the alphabet. Which I think if you did that in real life, you'd be dead.
Yeah. In one sitting.
Only one way to find out.
Yeah. Watch as Matt next week drinks the alphabet.
I will drink the alphabet, and I will never die.
I'll just make you drink a bunch of like those wooden alphabet blocks. You're like, first one gets stuck in your throat sideways like a cartoon bone. I'm like, shit! But yeah, as to your point with the whole like spy thing, Sato was hiding the weapon schematics until the fight is on. Which, I don't know, I thought that was kind of like, okay, you know, like, what's the weapon gonna be and all this other crap. And like, then one of the stupidest lines ever is said, a knife is simple, using it ain't. And I'm like, it's one of the first weapons ever fucking created, what are you talking about? Like, the cowboy guy says that, and I was like, I was using a fucking knife, not simple. He's like, bleh.
Steven Seagal.
So then we've got the revealing of the spy. Who was it, Matt?
Tex! Tex Conway! Miyagi! Tex Conway! Yeah! Miyagi!
It's like, why?
Like, that's not over the top war cartoon.
He's like, the land, go, farm, go, go. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You smell of coward. It's like, why? He should have said that to the main guy.
Yeah, Tex.
He said that to.
Oh, yeah.
He turns into to fucking Sato and becomes like, okay. But
the other biggest laugh for me is when like Tex is outed.
Dude, at the end, that is probably like the funniest.
He decides to kill himself.
Greatest thing ever.
But the funny part is he leaps to his death.
Yeah.
And goes, Geronimo! Which usually that's like a triumphant.
Yeah.
He's like, Geronimo!
Yeah, so they play like the video of like what the weapon is, and it's like halfway through when you're watching something and somebody taped over your video. It shows like what he did, like he confronted Sato and shoots him in the head, and he's like, this whole thing is like, Achilles says, "You didn't, Tex," and he says, "I sure as hell did. Watch."
Blows his head off.
Then they go to arrest him and like completely somehow flub it 2-on-1, and he's like, "I'll see you hanged for this," and he's like, "No, you won't. I'll see you in hell." And he like runs and jumps out a window, like you said, and he like Mama from like Robo or like. Is it RoboCop? Or no, it's Dread. Yeah. Where, like, he splats. He jumps out the thing and he's like, and he's like, I think it's gonna be a lot.
He turns into the Rocket Man.
Yeah, you just fuck. The way he does it is so perfect, too, because he gives a full 4 like jump back. He does like a frog splash, like RVD style. He's like, "What are the game?"
You gotta love a villain who like makes no bones about it. Like he knows he's the wrong guy. He did wrong, and he's not gonna like apologize.
He's like, "I'm the wrong guy. I didn't do it.
I did wrong."
And they're like, he's in a diaper. He's like, "Dad, I did wrong."
He's in the wrong. I should have said. And he's like, makes no bones about it.
Right? Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm your guy.
He hams it up, and that's what makes it. It's like, dude. I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous, yeah, but is it awesome? Yeah, it's funny as hell.
That was hilarious.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I had a thing about it. Yeah, where we like, oh my god, I was like, what the fuck just happened? So I didn't get this part, like, they're like, all while this is going on, like, she steals, like, the mech or whatever, and, like, they're like, shoot to kill, and, like, she's laughing like a mad person. Like, I was like, what? Like, is she broken or something? And it was weird. I was like, but then, like, later on in the film, it's like, she's not. She's, like, listening to instructions. So
yeah.
Like,
it was a little bit inconsistent with that character.
Rewinding to when he confronts him, I just had a note here about the worst holding up of all time. He holds the gun, and then he just is like, it's like slow hitting it with the hat and then grabbing the gun. I was like, like this could have been done again, guys. Like this was
Take 2.
Yeah, seriously. But then at the end of the film, there's Alexander has a new mech. It's 4-armed, or damn it, 4-legged.
Yeah.
4-legged, 2-armed. 6-legged free.
All robot.
Yeah,
it was awesome. And like,
it had like this weird face. It almost seemed like on it, like.
Yeah. Some of the effects are like stop motion animation. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I was like, holy! When I first saw him, it like in that very first fight between him and Alexander, because essentially there's just 2 fights in this. But that was like, holy crap! Like it's like. Like gets up and walks, and I'm like, that has to be stop motion because the way I could. Well, it was obvious, but also you can tell because it has that thing where like it has that weird look to it, where it's like stuff that's in the foreground that they've like superimposed, where people are like running into stuff and all this other stuff. But it's cool to see because it reminded me of like watching like Jason the Argonauts back in the day.
Yeah. One thing I remember from the commentary is like they challenged themselves because at least one of the fights take place outdoors.
Right. Yeah.
And they actually did the stop motion outdoors.
Nice.
Which is like unprecedented because you can't really do too much because like the sun.
Yeah, you never know with the weather and.
So it took them like months.
Yeah.
To do, which is like damn impressive. It paid off because it looks great.
Yeah. They're like, then after we finished the film, we realized we could have just made a set. I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
But no, it was legit.
Yeah.
So like, getting to the secret weapon, it's essentially like a flashbang that ends up helping him because she blinds him, and then he jumps on her and just starts beating her ass. And I'm like, what the fuck? Is that the first time I've ever seen something like that rolling? It was like automatic backfiring. But she does like cut off one of his arms, but it doesn't really seem to matter.
Yeah.
She still gets her ass beat.
Speaking of secret weapons, though, the best one in this movie is the chainsaw wiener.
Yeah.
Like, I think this whole movie exists just so they could have a robot with a chainsaw.
Yeah, I actually have, there's a bunch of crotch stuff going on here. Missile shots at crotch, flipping Mech by grabbing the crotch, and then to top it all off, like, freaking crotch rocket, freaking, chainsaw comes out of his crotch. It's like... But yeah, that was literally like, in 3 scenes, it was like, shoot, grab the one on the ground, flip it over by his crotch, and then he was like, and I was like, really? It was fun.
Worth the price of admission.
Yeah, it was legit. But this is what we were talking about earlier, where like Alexander tried to kill the refs, and it's like, okay, at this point, like, he's off the rails, dude.
Yeah, shut him down.
Yeah.
Launch a nuke at him.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Nuke your own country.
Yeah.
To kill one guy. Like, well, we got rid of this one pilot. They definitely don't have anyone to replace him. So at one point they go into space, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
When he goes up, he looks like he crapped his pants. They go so fast up, he's like,
wouldn't you?
Well, I'm not saying whether I would or would not, but I'm saying he looks like not like he looks like there's G's on him. It looks like he shit his pants. He's like, oh no. But the cool fighting in space. And then I thought this was really cool. They have like they exchange attacks in space, and it's like the first movie I can ever think of where there's no sound in space like at all for the entire fight.
Yeah.
Like for unrealistic and ridiculous for some of the stuff is obviously it's a science fiction. Like that was like realistic because like in space, there's like no real sound, so it's like it was interesting to see that aspect.
You wanted science fiction, but you got science fact.
I did. Actually, I watched science fiction until science fact.
Yeah. That was a cool touch.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit. I know they did something like that in Star Wars Episode 2, where they had like the mines, but like they kind of went with it, but then it kind of made a sound anyway. And it was also kind of weird because like never have they done anything like that in Star Wars before or since, so it's almost kind of like a experiment.
Yeah,
I thought it was like cool, but
it creates like a void of silence.
Right.
For a second.
Or a void of sound, you mean?
Well, it's like for an instant, there's no sound.
Right. Yeah. So it would be a void of
Yeah.
but then it's like so it's like what? It definitely like works for like the scene.
Yeah.
So what'd you think about the mech sitting on its ass and scooting like
that was cool.
It's like cracking up. He grabs his feet and he's like
crisscross applesauce.
Yeah, he like rubs his asshole on the floor.
He was riding like a doubt.
Yeah. He's like yar yar yar. So we're down to the end of this movie with zigzagging to get away from shots fired, and it works pretty well.
It does.
He's like.
It doesn't work from a coolness standpoint.
No,
it looks pretty silly.
Yeah. But he does some precision wiring with bulky ass gloves on. makes sense.
Yeah, I wish the movie kind of would have ended there instead of having them do the little hand-to-hand thing at the end, because that felt a little bit anticlimactic. Like, they were just in space. And now they're just, like, brawling with each other.
Yeah, and then they do, like, a thing where, like, he fires off, like, a fist that was on the ground, and it, like, essentially blows up the whole fucking mech.
Yep.
I was like, damn, that freaking fist was packed with TNT. Dynamite. And then Alexander warps over. I thought that was kind of, like, funny and weird. He essentially, like, you see the mech, he's like 2 miles away, and then he's, like right there with the pipe, and I'm like, what? And essentially, the ending's pretty cool because the 5th ending, because they have him just, like, randomly, he's just, like, reformed, but it didn't really make any sense why. It was just kind of like, it was kind of like the Rocky thing, where it's just like, well, okay, you know, I'll be a good guy.
If we could change, you can alter. What's the line? If I can change, you can change.
Yeah.
We can all change. It's basically,
yeah. And he's like, we can live.
Yeah.
He's like, we don't have to kill each other. Which, that was never really supposed to happen anyway, because, like, Alexander was just killing people and they weren't...
You're right, we didn't have to.
Right, finding him, or, like, he wasn't in trouble. Because every time they were like, he submits, and then the rest were like, you don't have to kill him, and then he does anyway, and they're like, who cares? He just committed a fucking murder for no reason.
I do love any movie that ends with a thumbs up as the final shot.
Yeah.
Like, so good, man. I think, doesn't Tango and Cash have a... Or no, that's a high five.
Yeah, they're like...
Freeze frame.
So do you have any interesting insights from the Blu-ray that you haven't talked about yet? I know that you said, did you watch the commentary and stuff?
Yeah, there's lots of good behind-the-scenes stuff on there. I think the director's commentary, he just talks a lot about, like, the budget limitations and stuff, which I understand, but still, like, it is what it is.
He's like, I'm blaming my tools. It's like,
But no, that's about it that I can really remember.
Yeah. And that is the end, because essentially it ends on them being like...
Every movie should end on a thumbs up.
Yeah. Even like a horror movie.
Yeah.
The 2 bad guys.
Citizen Kane, he's like, Rosebud!
He's like...
Freeze frame.
Every movie should end on a fucking freeze frame.
It should.
He's like, Rosebud. It's like...
Either that or...
I met so many fucking horror movies in like the 2000s were like that, where it was just like... just so ridiculous, like nu metal that would just
cut my life into 2 pieces.
It would, like, the movie would end and it'd be like, the bad guy would be like, I'm coming back or whatever, and then it'd be like, it's like, okay, put your hands up. Like, is this necessary? So, do you have anything necessary to say?
I think we covered it.
Yeah. What would you get this?
Solid 7.95.
That sounds about right, man.
Yeah. It's worth seeing. I would recommend anyone see this movie because it has awesome robot fights.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's got a lot of good stuff going on in it. My only, like, real complaints is it kind of drags in some spots.
It does. Like, this movie's, I think, under 90 minutes, and they probably could have cut, like, a good 10 out of it.
Yeah.
Made it even better.
Well, it's also, it suffers from Lord of the Rings ending, where there's, like, a bunch of endings.
Right. I agree.
Like,
I agree with you on that
one. Which, it's like they were all perfectly fine, but they should have just picked one. But, you know, it's not enough for me to be like, don't watch this movie. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say about the film. I think we did a good job talking about it. Yeah. So, do you have anything else to say about it before we talk about next week? What we're starting next week? You're like, yes, I do. I have another review right here. Roboducks 2. The Revenge of Citizen Kane. So, next week is going to be in October. And just like last year, and probably every other year that we're going to do this, we're going to do, you know,
double feature.
Frightening films. Or Scary Son. I couldn't think of anything for M's for movies. Can you? Monstrous movies, maybe. But yeah, like you said, double features each week. What's week 1, Matt?
Bigfoot week. Or actually, it's Wick week.
Foot week. Maybe Quentin Tarantino will show up.
Squatch week.
Squatch week. Wendigo week.
Yeah, there you go.
So we've got, I can't remember, I honestly don't remember who nominated what in
Who
any of this
picked?
week.
I think I picked them both, actually.
Bigfoot's that we want. It's like,
I definitely picked Willow Creek because I've been wanting you to see
So
this.
Night of the Demon, I think you actually bought
Yeah.
a copy for me and you.
Yeah.
And I don't really know much about either one of these, so I'm pretty excited.
You know one thing about Night of the Demon.
Well, yeah. Which I can't wait to talk about that. So Night of the Demon, 1980. It just kind of recently got a release, right?
Yeah.
Bigfoot is here. And then Willow Creek, 2013, which I think, for me, the biggest thing about that is that Bobcat Goldthwait directed that film. It'll be interesting to watch. I don't have the full list of all the stuff, but, of what we're going over. But we will post it on social media and stuff for everybody. I guess, as always, we're going to be on Tuesdays on YouTube, Steak Belmont 64. Check out this episode, and you can check us out on all our socials on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and TikTok on Steak Belmont 64 as well. I kind of have an idea of how we can end this podcast.
In anticipation of Wendigo week.
If you're up for it.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Crash and burn.